Hello, my dear friends. Hello, my dear listeners. How are you all? I hope you are doing best in your own circumstances to serve your duties with utmost honesty and love. So, let's start the next part from the life of our master, Shri Ramkrishna Paramhansa Dev. So, let's start. Talking of the inscrutable nature of Maya, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, even Brahma feels miserable when he falls into the snare. You close your eyes and discriminate. There is no thorn, nothing to prick. But as soon as your hand is hurt by a thorn, you cry out in pain. Similarly, you may reason in your mind that there is no such thing as birth or death, virtue or vice, pain or misery, hunger or thirst, that you are the eternal Brahman, the existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. But the moment there is some trouble with the body or temptations overcome the mind, you forget all your high philosophy and are overwhelmed with delusion and its painful consequences. He used to illustrate this by the following parable. Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana are going through the woods. It is a narrow path where only one at a time can go. Ram is leading the way, bow and arrow in hand. Sita is following him, while Lakshmana is bringing up the rear with his bow and arrow. Lakshmana is intensely devoted to Rama and longs to see him constantly. But Sita is between and obstructing his view, and he is sore at heart. Sita is quick in detecting this and moved with sympathy, she steps aside now and then, saying, "Look." Then Lakshmana sees his beloved Lord. Similarly, between the Jiva and the Lord, there is Maya, the Divine Mother. Unless she, moved by sympathy, steps aside, the Jiva can never see his Lord. So, however much you may discriminate, it is all to no purpose without her help. Totapuri did not understand this magic power of the Divine Mother, which for some forges endless chains, but for the fortunate few opens the gate of heaven. He himself had ever been an object of special favor with the Divine Mother. Through her grace, he was possessed of those qualities of head and heart which lifted him above the tribulations of life. Totapuri was not conscious of this. He could not realize that her gracious hand was protecting him from all dangers and trials, and naturally he thought that he had acquired the highest knowledge by his own personal efforts. But the Divine Mother willed that he should know his real position and provided an opportunity to show him this. Endowed with an iron constitution, Totapuri was never troubled with complaints of the body. He had a good digestion and always enjoyed sound sleep. His mind, too, was full of bliss, the outcome of his realization. But after a few months' stay in Bengal, even his strong physique felt the enveranting influence of the climate, and he became a victim to a virulent attack of dysentery. Day and night he felt an unbearable gripping pain which disturbed the concentration and the balance of his trained mind. From its absorption in Brahman, it began to be diverted to the troubles of the body. Even before the attack, he had felt that the climate was not suitable for him and that he must move. He must move, but he could not persuade himself to forego the blissful company of Sri Ramakrishna simply because of the body. The very idea was ridiculous, and besides, the body could contract disease anywhere, And why should he care at all for this physical frame, the very nature of which was to suffer, decay, and ultimately die? Had he not realized once for all that he was the soul and not the body? So, why should he be afraid of death? With such arguments, he silenced his mind and stayed on at Dakshineshwar. But as the symptoms of disease increased and the desire to quit Dakshineshwar became stronger, something or other prevented him from bringing the subject up to Sri Ramakrishna and asking his permission to leave. Seeing that he was losing weight, Sri Ramakrishna arranged a proper diet and medicines for him. But it was of no use. Then, at his instance, Mathur arranged for a regular treatment, but with no better result. In spite of all this trouble, trouble with the body, the Swami's mind was still disciplined enough to enter into samadhi at will and forget all about the physical. But on a particular night, his pain became excruciating and he could get no relief. Then he tried to dissociate the mind from the body by concentrating it on Brahman. But before he could raise it to that level, it slipped back to the pain in the body. He tried again and again but failed every time. Then he became disgusted with his body and thought, because of this wretched body, my mind is beyond control today. I know positively that I am not the body, so why should I associate myself with it and suffer its pain? What's the use of dragging it about? I shall sacrifice it in the Ganges and put an end to all my trouble. Thus determined, Totapuri carefully concentrated his mind on Brahman and slowly advanced into the water. But what was this? Was the Ganges really dry tonight? Or was it an illusion of his mind? He went on and on until he almost reached the other bank, yet the water was not deep enough to drown himself. To drown him, he caught a glimpse of the trees and houses on the bank, standing like shadows in the midst of the darkness. Bewildered, he thought, what a freak of Maya! There is not water enough in the river today to drown me. What a mysterious play of the god! Suddenly a veil was lifted, as it were from his mind's eye. A glorious vista of divine presence was unfolded before him. His intellect was dazzled before the flash of this revelation. On all sides, he found the manifestation of the Divine Mother, the omnipotent Mother of the universe. She was in the water and she was on land. She was the body and she was the mind. She was pain and she was comfort. She was knowledge and she was ignorance. She was life and she was death. He found the mother in everything that he saw or heard or thought or imagined. She was turning yea into nay, and vice versa. No embodied being could go beyond her jurisdiction unless she was pleased to let him go. He had not even the freedom to die. Again, beyond the body and mind also, it was she, the mother, in her transcendent, her absolute aspect. She was the Brahman who he had been worshipping all his life and to whom he had been offering his heart's adoration. Brahman and Shakti were one and the same thing, the two aspects of the same entity. In that hour of solemn silence, Totapuri, with a heart full of devotion, realized the immense of the Mother in the universe and again took her holy name. With a loving heart, he surrendered himself completely at her feet and waded back to Dakshineshwar. Though there was still pain in the body, it was not reflected in his mind. The joyous memory of the revelation sent a thrill through his whole being. He took his accustomed seat by the fire and spent the remainder of the night in uttering the name of the Divine Mother and in meditating on her. Next morning, when Sri Ramakrishna came to inquire about the Swami's health, he found him altogether a different man. His face was beaming with joy, and the body seemed to be free from illness. He asked Sri Ramakrishna to sit by him so that he might tell what had happened during the night. He said, "The disease has been a friend to me. Last night I was blessed with the vision of the Divine Mother, and through her grace have been freed from the disease. Oh, how profoundly ignorant I was! Well, now get me your mother's permission to leave. I now understand that it was to teach me this lesson that she kept me here so long. Many a time did I think of leaving and actually went to you to bid you goodbye. But somebody always prevented me, as it were, whenever I tried to speak of it to you and diverted me by introducing other topics." Sri Ramakrishna smiled at this and said, "Ah, then you refuse to believe in my mother and argued with me to disprove her. Now you see that Shakti, that she is real. She taught me long ago that Brahman and Shakti are inseparable, like fire and its burning property." The music from the concert room was pouring forth its charming strains when the two saints left their seats to go to the temple of the Divine Mother. Both felt, as they prostrated themselves before the mother, that she gave her willing assent to the departure. A few days after, Totapuri took leave of Sri Ramakrishna and bid adieu to Dakshineshwar. The lesson which Totapuri learnt at Dakshineshwar may be summed up in Sri Ramakrishna's words: "When the Supreme Being is thought of as inactive, not creating, sustaining, or destroying, I call him Brahman or Purusha, the impersonal God. When I think of him as active, creating, sustaining, and destroying, I call him Shakti or Maya or Prakriti or the personal God." But really, the distinction between Brahman and Shakti, or impersonal God and personal God, is a distinction without a difference. The impersonal and the personal are one and the same being, even as milk and its whiteness. You cannot conceive the milk without the whiteness. They are one, like a gem and its lustre. They are one, like a snake and its zigzag movement. When you think of a snake, you automatically think of its zigzag motion also. Similar is the relation between Brahman and the Divine Mother. So, my dear friends, today we are stopping here and we will start the next part to know what happened next, or to know about the other holy gurus who came into the life of Sri Ramakrishna, and we are going to know a little bit about them. So, till then, be happy, be jolly, and keep praying. Shubhamastu.